Today, we're looking at the life, the intellect, and the sheer audacity of a man who didn't just challenge the British Empire, he fundamentally fractured it. We're going to chronicle the relentless and incredibly unconventional pursuit of Indian independence by Subhash Chandra Bose.
You know, mainstream history often likes to focus entirely on the final, nonviolent blow that toppled British rule in India. But a strong wall isn't brought down by a single hit. Many crushing blows fell on that wall of slavery before it finally collapsed. And perhaps nobody swung that hammer harder or more strategically than Bose.
Part 1. The Uncompromising Rebel.
To really understand Bose, you have to look at his early years, because this was a guy who simply refused to bow to injustice right from the start. Born in 1897, he enters Presidency College in 1913. But jump ahead to 1916 and something pivotal happens. He witnesses a British professor physically abusing Indian students. When the college shrugs it off and refuses to demand a proper apology, Bose steps up and actually organizes a student strike. The result? He gets expelled. And when a commission asks him to apologize, he flat out refuses, establishing a lifelong pattern right there. He would never compromise with wrongdoers, no matter the personal cost.
Section 2. Rejecting the elite path.
So following his expulsion, his father basically pushes him toward the most prestigious, comfortable route an Indian could take at the time, the Indian Civil Services, or ICS. And here is where you really see his staggering intellectual genius. He ranked 4th globally in the ICS exam in London. 4th! This was a brutally rigorous exam that usually took years to prepare for, and he defeated top British candidates in their own system after just 7 months of study. He had essentially secured a life of ultimate comfort and power.
But then, in 1921, he did something that completely shocked the British and absolutely electrified India. He kicked that elite privilege away. His nationalist fire was just too strong. As he put it, he wasn't born to loot his country, but to do something for it. No Indian had ever willingly walked away from the ICS before, and this single, defiant act made him an overnight sensation back home.
Section 3. The Fight for Complete Freedom.
Returning to India, thousands welcome him at the docks. He rapidly evolves into this massive political force, but by 1928, this leads to intense ideological clashes with Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. See, the mainstream Congress, guided by Gandhi, was willing to accept a compromise called Dominion status. This basically meant Indians could run local government, but the British would still control defense, communications, and foreign policy. Bose completely rejected this. He demanded Purna Swaraj, complete independence. He knew, strategically, that true power required absolute control over your own military and foreign relations.
This ideological split hits a massive climax in the 1939 Congress presidential elections. Gandhi handpicked a candidate, Pattabhi Sitaramaiah, and explicitly told the public that a vote for Sitaramaiah was a vote for Gandhi himself. Yet Bose won anyway, securing 1,580 votes as an independent against Sitaramaiah's 1,375. It absolutely proved his massive popularity across the country. But realizing their philosophies on how to handle the impending world war were just too different, Bose respectfully resigned shortly after to forge his own path.
Section 4. Building Global Alliances.
At this point, Bose realizes that staying in India under 24/7 British surveillance isn't going to achieve his goals. Which brings us to a crazy question. How does a man trapped under strict house arrest slip away to forge global military alliances with the major Axis powers?
The answer is an absolute logistical marvel of an escape route. Disguised, sometimes literally hiding under car seats, he travels all the way from Calcutta to Kabul, then to Moscow, and eventually lands in Germany. Later on, incredibly, the Germans transfer him to a U-boat for a treacherous 90-day submarine journey right through enemy waters. He eventually reaches Japanese territory in Sumatra and finally makes it to Tokyo.
The crucial takeaway here is how he influenced world leaders step by step along this insane journey. Using his sheer intellect to navigate a highly dangerous geopolitical landscape, he didn't just meet these leaders, he strategically pitched and negotiated with them to secure resources for India's liberation.
And that includes a famous, highly unprecedented encounter in Germany. When waiting to meet Adolf Hitler, several body doubles were supposedly sent into the room first. Bose didn't even stand up. He reportedly recognized right away that they lacked the imperial arrogance of the real dictator. When the actual Hitler finally walked in, Bose greeted him properly. The story goes that Hitler was so astounded by Bose's accurate judgment that it won his immediate respect, prompting Germany to release 4,000 Indian prisoners of war to form the nucleus of Bose's new army.
Section 5. The Azad Hind Fauj.
Now backed by the Japanese Prime Minister who agreed to aid India's liberation, Bose turns his attention to the massive British Indian garrison stationed in Singapore. Knowing the British completely relied on Indian troops to hold their empire, he unleashes this brilliant psychological warfare. He orchestrates a campaign where Japanese planes drop leaflets, printed in Hindi, Tamil, and English, all over Singapore. They urge the 45,000 Indian troops down there to stop fighting for their colonizers and rebel. And it worked instantly, swelling the ranks of his newly formed Indian National Army.
What's truly amazing here is his unparalleled unifying leadership. At a time when the British were actively dividing India, Bose dissolved religious divides entirely. Muslims, Hindus, and Sikhs fought shoulder to shoulder, completely funding and supporting his movement together. He even empowered women by creating the Rani of Jhansi Brigade, which was an active, all-female combat unit. And in 1944, this army successfully pushed the British back, physically planting the Indian flag on domestic soil in Manipur.
Section 6. The Final Hammer Blow.
As World War II ends and Japan retreats, Bose's army is halted, but honestly, the explosive impact of his actions was just beginning to detonate within India itself. See, the British made what would prove to be a fatal miscalculation. They captured 3 of Bose's senior commanders, a Muslim, a Sikh, and a Hindu, and put them on public trial for treason at the Red Fort in Delhi. Rather than intimidating the public, these trials ended up broadcasting the heroism of the Indian National Army across the country, which absolutely enraged the entire Indian population.
And this nationwide fury triggered something unprecedented. 20,000. That is the number of soldiers across the Royal Indian Navy and the Royal Indian Air Force who actively mutinied. Inspired directly by Bose's army, they simply refused to serve the British crown any longer. Suddenly, the British were staring down some terrifying math. They were attempting to control a massive country using 2.5 million heavily armed Indian soldiers managed by just 40,000 British troops. Once those Indian soldiers stopped obeying orders, a direct result of Bose's influence, the British realized their hold on the subcontinent was completely broken.
And the historical validation of this strategy is profound. Decades later, Clement Attlee, the very UK Prime Minister who actually signed India's Independence Act, confessed a stunning truth. He admitted that the impact of the nonviolent movement was minimal and that the British left because they had absolutely lost control over the military, a mutiny sparked directly by the legacy of Subhash Chandra Bose.
Now, while his political and military impact is undeniable, his ultimate fate remains entirely clouded in mystery. Historical theories range wildly. There's the officially reported 1945 plane crash in Taiwan, which was actually later disputed by the Mukherjee Commission. Then there are theories of him being tortured in a foreign prison, rumors of him operating as a covert agent for the French Secret Services, or even living out his days completely anonymously in India as a spiritual figure known as Gumnami Baba. But regardless of how his life ended, his impact on history was absolute. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Given his unique ability to unify completely polarized religious factions, his brilliant geopolitical vision, and his deep intellect, what would the world look like today if this uncompromising rebel had lived to govern the nation he helped liberate? It's something to think about. Keep questioning the history you think you know.